Hello, this is Reverend Joseph Andrew Jetson. God is turning loose everything on me. I'm learning things that I should have learned a year ago, 2 years ago. But that's the way God is. He's held back a lot of information. Even a lot of things I've said were wrong. But God did that on purpose. I can see that now. He did that. It's just like when I got into this in June the 9th, 2019, and became a minister. It was during an argument with God. And God said, Joe, please quit blaming me. I don't have no hands to help you or stop anybody. I don't have any legs to run save you from a fire or to run to put a fire out. I don't have a mouth to call 911. Now, why did God come to me? I've never been a real, you know, God's been protecting me all my life. And I've been talking to God all my life. I've spoken tongues since I was 50 years old. I'm 72 now. For 20 years, I spoke to God in tongue. But I also spoke to God as a crane operator, as an iron worker. I prayed all the time. I talked to God all the time. Now, Elon Musk, you have that same thing I have, and that is autism. But you're at the top, the high end of the spectrum. I wasn't at the high end of the spectrum. I never got the mainstream in school. But little by little, even when I got out of high school, I went to summer school every summer. So I was able to graduate high school early. And when I got to my first time I went to college, I got 4.0 for the first 2 semesters. But I cannot function at too many things at one time. When I'm in school, I'm in school. That's the way I am. I can't really function on many things at one time. But that's the kind of the way that we're not multitaskers in a sense. Einstein was autistic, but he focused on one thing at a time. Elon Musk, even though it doesn't look like it, is not a multitasker. When he built SpaceX, he was committed on SpaceX. Let me give you a clue. And Elon Musk, I want you to listen to this. You're the easiest one to convince if you don't know it already. Don't be like Einstein. Don't be like Gandhi. Einstein never recognized God, never figured it out. The same thing as Gandhi. Gandhi told 1.4 billion people, I've never seen God, but I'll always be looking for him. My God, that's the stupidest thing that anybody could say. Because God lives in us, everybody. How do you think you got so smart, Elon? How does Einstein figure he got that smart? How does Gandhi figure he got that smart? Every bit of inspiration, every bit of dream, every thought. Okay, the word thought. Does electricity think? No. Does any noble gas think? Life is God. And God gets his way. Thy will be done because we are the thinking process. He invented the thinking process. No other energy source can think unless we give it the power to think. So we have to be careful. But nothing. God doesn't give us anything not for a reason. This could be the example. God came to me on June the 9th, 2019. Why now? Because of the phone. Because of the Apple phone. Because China invented 5G. Now, what did you recently do, Elon? You got a jet, an unmanned jet that can fly, faster than the speed of sound. Okay? 1,000 miles an hour. You actually got one that can travel 7,000 miles an hour. That's unmanned. You got a manned flight that can fly right at the speed of sound. A manned flight. I don't know how it works. I just heard about it. The point of the matter is you created SpaceX because God needed it. Why? Because we're fixing to go into the Jetson age. The Jetson age. God's already showed me some things, how space, how how do you want to say it? A flying saucer works. It's a simple solution. It's like if somebody ever figures out how to see through the ground to find gold. I mean, gold explanations will be incredibly easy someday because man will be able to find gold. It's an easy solution that God has. It's got its timing. But we don't need gold. That's why it's not invented yet. It's got a purpose. Radiation has its purpose. Radiation is very useful. But we have to think of it in a way that someday the radiation will be a home reactor, one that can be air cooled, not having to be cooled by corrosive salts, alkalins. You know, you got boric acid and things like that, all in water to cool the reactor, but at the same time, it's very, very corrosive to piping. But this, and it's stockpiled in water, in this water. It's kind of like God is preventing it right now by storing it and moving it around. But it was made for a reason. If they start making every home a nuclear reactor and actually make it cheap, so every home can afford it. But you don't want to make reactors that last over 10 years. People can always have another one reinstalled, but the home has to be able to withstand 10 years. If it goes any longer, the house would be broken down, but the reactor will be still producing. Now, Elon, you know this. Every ion, if it's in a nuclear reactor, can be solidified or set in resin or whatever to fight each other. Ionization. It's going to go down like a battery, so it can be timed out by the amount. Put two ions fighting it out. As it goes down and down, sooner or later it's going to become radioactive. Not sooner or later, really, because every 3 months the reactor has to be refueled. It's pretty quick. It really is. 10 years in a nuclear sub is too long. It's too long. Nuclear subs have to get refueled. The reactors are only made to last 10 years. You know, it's actually too long. But in a household, the same. Because parts they wear out, just like a car on the road. A car on the road is not made to last 30 years. You know, and that after 10 years, it's non-insurable. You know, nobody's going to insure a car that's too old. The classics. That's why so many of them are in the junkyard. The point is, everything's for a reason. The phone came out now. It couldn't come out before now because God's came back. He came back to me on June the 9th. I was arguing with God, but now I understand completely what God says. In fact, God has been talking to me the first time he talked to me. Now, it doesn't mean I haven't been talking to God before that. I've been talking to God since 2001, actually all my life. But in 2001, when my father died, I had a dream, and it's all about in the Korean War. It gives honor to Kim Jong-un's great-great-grandfather. It gives honor to Korea because they fought Japan. It tells you about Japan. Who created Japan was a coalition of, I think it was 7 countries. The United States is one of them. They weren't the first of them. England, France, Portugal, the Dutch, in the United States, and I said England, France, Spain. Those are the countries that wanted to use China and exploited China to get them to, because there's so many people in the Chinese, they used them to everything from building uniforms and clothes for the militaries to the weapons of militaries to all the trade goods in China, everything to fashionable clothing to the same thing, weapons for the private sector. The British, the French, the Spanish, all took slaves from Shanghai. Shanghai is a separate country. It's a part of China. It's not really a separate country, but it's a part of China. But the thing about it is, what Shanghai did, China aided the coalition in getting the uniforms, getting the weapons, and they forced the Chinese, or like the Chinese government in Beijing, was used as slaves. All China was used as slaves. Shanghai was over them because they were part of the coalition. They weren't exactly totally against the Chinese, but they were. The United States was not. The Civil War, for instance, the Chinese built the uniforms. The Chinese built the new weaponry. That's how come the North won. It was part of the coalition. The South, on the other hand, they knew about the coalition. They were fighting the coalition. The South was rich. They were going to lose their power to the thing, but they're also trying to stop the coalition in the Pacific. They were building the railroads all through the North. You know this as fact. They were taking over, and they used the railroad in fear between the Chinese. Not all of them were slaves. They came to the United States to get work, and it was better than the slavery in China. The Shanghai was offering freedom from the slavery that was going on in China by the other countries, by the way. You know what happened in Hong Kong? Hong Kong exploited China too. Now, I'm not for China, just strictly for China. I'm not a communist either. But everything that happened in life, it was for a reason. It was for a reason that God pre-saw. It's that He made it happen. He saw what was going to happen, and He's using it to His advantage. Okay? It's not, you say God knew it's going to happen. Sure, He knew it's going to happen, but He didn't stop it. Why didn't He stop it? Because He had a plan, and now the plan's taking place. Now, Elon, you need to listen to this very closely. You're autistic and part of the spectrum. You've been a part of the spectrum since you was a child, on the high end. So was Einstein. I was on the low end. I never got the mainstream in school, and I didn't wasn't able to learn except for starting in summer schools. I was finally able to take algebra. I was finally able to take courses, history, things like that for the first time. Before then, it was reading and arithmetic. Arithmetic? I never got to take biology. I never get to take chemistry, anything. It was forbidden because I was basically retarded. Okay? Now, on June the 9th, God started talking to me. I was a writer since 2001, and that's how God spoke to me. He gave me my books. They're wonderful books. They're wonderful books, and they all got to do with God. They all got to do with God. But now here's the point. Now today, Elon, you have to realize God lives in you. You became what you are because God lives in you. God lives in every person, and God is the inspiration. He is the one. You're building things for God. These are God's weapons of the future. What you're building now is God's weapons of the future. I mean, you built a vehicle, unmanned vehicle that's is planning to go 7 times the speed of sound, warp 7. Eventually, it'll go way on faster than that. We're not even talking about. We're talking about the speed of light, warp drive, not the speed of sound. We're talking about warp drive, unmanned warp drive, where a man can't stand the forces of IG. He can still fly a stealth aircraft that goes 7,000 miles, and that means the United. What's that mean? The United States is going to be. Every country is going to be under the fear of what Elon Musk can do. The United States, what can do. We're going to be a superior force. In a sense, we will. But it's not the United States. It's going to be a superior force. It's actually going to be China. It should be North Korea. It's going to be South Korea. But it's also going to be Elon Musk, because Elon Musk is an American. Elon Musk wasn't always an American. He was a South African. His people in Africa average $1.25 a day. In Burundi, they average 80 cents a day. This could be the only wage in the family. And we're talking about a 10-hour day. Hard-working day. And these people aren't lazy, believe it or not. My God, these people aren't just sitting there starving. They're working every day. The Chinese are the same way. They're forced to work every day because they are poor, very poor. Elon Musk, you know what that was like because you're from Africa. You know the problems in Africa. That's why you're in the United States. God put you in the United States, brought you to the United States, just for this reason. What's happening right now, because God couldn't come back before the phone. The phone is what's going to unite us. Now you come up with the Tesla Pi, the perfect solution. That's what's good. You could believe this or not, Elon, that Tesla Pi is what have I been talking about? Every bank has to issue a phone. Now your phone's going to be cheaper anyway. It's going to be $250. But your phone is so secure, it's unhackable, and the same, and also runs off of solar, can recharge itself solarly. It also has the highest speed of any phones. And it's got the best photographs of everything. I mean, it's uncomparable, but why do you have it now? Ask yourself this. If you don't believe in God, then you're missing the point. But because God, just like God gave me as the messenger, the message to get to you and everybody else is for this reason. God's going to be for this reason. But God's got to catch on fire somehow because nobody knows me. Nobody knows me. I haven't sold one of my books since 2012. I didn't even, that's when my first book got published. I got several books for sale now, and many more to get published as I can afford it. But the point of the matter is you have the knowledge given to you by God. Please recognize that. Einstein didn't. When I ask you to invest everything you have, go all in, it's called, in go in to all in North Korea and South Korea together. Both there'll be no difference in the won. The Korean won or the North Korean won will both be worth one God's coin. November the 16th, 2024, this year, one month away. Today's the 16th. Wednesday the 16th, October the 16th. Next month is November, and that's when it takes off. I had trouble until now figuring out why it wasn't. I thought it was a day after voting, but then recently God just said, no, it's not the voting. It's not the voting. November the 5th is the voting. It's God's time. It's November the 15th. That's when I announced to the world that a God's coin will cost $75,000 in America. Now, nobody's going to take that offer except for you, Donald Trump. You're going to be the leader. You have to be the leader. Just go all in God's coin and you buy the won, because the won is going to be worth one God's coin. Both wons in Korea and South Korea will be worth one God's coin. There's 5,000 won to the dollar. In Korea, it's a little less. It's like 3,000, but it's still going to be worth 5,000 because they're going to be equal. They have to work together, and you're the one that's going to turn Korea back into one country. No North and South. You're going to end the war, and the United States is not going to go against you because you already got the capability of warp drive. Who can keep up warp drive? You're invisible to radar. You're invisible to everything. You can be across the world in seconds. You own outer space, for God's sake. How are you? You are being used by God, is what I'm trying to say. Your mind has been worked by God. Everybody in this world's minds are worked by God. That's why he said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thy will be done. So you're part of this equation. I'm just a messenger. I'm not God. I'm only the messenger to tell you, come on, if you're smart, you'll recognize God and you'll do what God says, God's will. Take and invest all you have into the won. Get it out of the United States, because if I'm charging $75,000 per God's coin, you got to get your money out of the United States anyway, because every time somebody buys a God's coin or I give a God's coin away, that the dollar is going to fall. It's going to free fall. You're going to lose that. Jeff Bezos, this goes for you too. Donald Trump, this goes for you too. Bill Gates. Ellison. And Zuckerberg. You're the last two on the list that are joining this. But you four, but five, Nakoshi Sakamoto, you're the big one. You're a big one player, just as important as Elon Musk. And you have almost as much money as Elon Musk. Well, he had as much money. Jeff Bezos has as much money as almost as much money as Elon Musk. He owns Amazon. But will you understand, all you guys, I think there's 6 of you altogether, 7 of you altogether, can turn this world overnight into our hands, God's hands. We become the hands and feet and mouth of God. Elon Musk, you must realize this is not a religion, this is a fact. You're actually using your hands, feet, and mouth to do God's will, even if you don't claim God. You're going to still do good because God's always been the one behind what you think. If you don't recognize God, He doesn't matter. You know why? Because you're still you're still building for God. But the difference of it is, God will take it away from you. You're going to create everything there is, just like President Xi Jinping and Apple. Didn't know that they were building 5G and the Apple phone and the smartphone. They didn't know that God was going to ruin them eventually, unless they join them. But I need China's help too. I had to talk to Liao Lin. When I talk to Liao Lin, it's going to be to prepare himself for 9 billion new God's Coins accounts. Come on, Elon, you're smart. You know this is going to happen whether you help or not. But the thing about it is, whatever you create, it's going to be for God, whether you do create a home with nuclear power. Nuclear power, that means no power lines. That needs no buried power electricity lines between your solar and nuclear. Everything's going to, there's not going to be these kind of things. Sooner or later, we might all be in hovercrafts so that we don't have to build roads like that. Or even if we did have to build roads, we won't be wearing out the tires anyway, and we won't be tearing up the road. Do you understand? You built this new phone, this Tesla Pi, because God told you how to do it and to do it. That's why God's right now. I was arguing with God when God called me, and He told me everything, and He still talks to me all the time. I know how this world got created. I know all the stories of the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, and they've all been manipulated. They weren't about God. They were about themselves, protecting themselves. They were murderers. They were murderers that made themselves look like heroes. They're the ones that made rules at their will. I mean, when people can't eat pork, they can't drink alcohol. They got 1/3 of this world living in fear and having the women have to dress completely covered, and the husbands have to follow. They have to fear that It's not just the fear of a rapist; it's the fear of themselves, because they're in a tradition that can't change. The fear of being outcasted. They created a monster of fear. They let the traditions control everyone's life. When I told you, God, I was a crane operator for 35 years. The only one that comes between me and God is, between my levers, pulling my levers, is God. I have to be in control, but God has to be in control first. I can't pull a lever unless God pulls my lever first. Allows me to move first. I can't even think until God gives me the power to think. So God is the operator here. Do you understand? I wasn't the operator. God's the operator. Because I can't even think. You can't build nothing because God's been doing your thinking for you. Give you the inspiration. You are just the hands and feet and mouth of God. Just like I was the hands and feet and mouth of God. What the world's been doing with religions is they've been sitting in the back seat or sitting in the passenger side or on the phone, and they're telling you, turn around, take another road, Don't listen to them. We need to go back. Yeah. Religions are nothing but people that want power over us. Nobody has the power to interfere with anybody's life because God lives in you. If God lives in you, he has to have your complete control. Once you start giving away your power, or in fear, or following traditions, you have given them then it gets more ridiculous and ridiculous every second. They have completely separated you from God. You're separated from God right now. If you got to learn who God is and why you're able to accomplish so much. The same with you, Jeff Bezos. The same with you, Donald Trump. The same with you, Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Ellison. This is what I'm talking about. This is what Satoshi. Satoshi, you started the Bitcoin for less than 1 cent. 9/10 of a cent. It's like incredible what you've done. But you also know, because you've gone through this many times, you have gone to the bottom. God's coin can't do that because God's coin is 9 billion people will have God's coin. 9 billion people will be on my payroll for one God's coin per month. Free labor. Free labor. To all government, everybody in this world will get God's coin, one God's coin per month, besides what they get when they initially join. When you join Elon, you're going to get 5,000 times, because there's one God's coin. There's 5,000 God's coin to the dollar. And then that each God's coin is going to be worth $75,000. So we're talking about, I think it's like 3e to the 39th power. You figured there's not even a word for that. There's not even a word for that. But God's coin is also going to be 20 years to use it or lose it. Now, it doesn't matter if you wait until the last day to reinvest that. That's doable. It's not going to go down because you just turn in whatever God's coin you have and renew it. Even if you wait to the very end, the majority of it. Until the day you die, because the God's coin is not transferable. Not to your children, not to your family, because they have God's coin accounts too. Everybody will have to be able to create business with free labor. We'll have free education, free hospitalization, free medical, free daycare, free everything. Everybody being God's services will be a paramedic. Everybody in God's services will be in the military, and they'll only shoot for the hands and feet. They'll learn to only shoot for the hands and feet. They'll be shooting the same advanced weapons, AK-47s, AR-15s. I guess every country has its choice of weapons. So whatever weapons they're using, advanced weaponry, everybody's going to learn how to shoot, but they're going to have to learn to shoot for the hands and feet. And everybody in this world will have that. Your phone. I just found this out, and I know it's going to be your phone. One that solar. How do you say, by solar is powered? Charges itself. That's what I'm trying to think. So it's being solar powered. At the same time, it's mostly advanced, can't be encrypted. It's perfect. This is what I just found out, and that's what I'm making this broadcast for, because Elon, this is the accumulation of all the time videos I've made so far. It's finally putting the puzzle together You'll find out in my videos, if you listen to any of them, go back on time, you'll find out that I once built a puzzle at 5 years old, upside down, 1,000-piece puzzles upside down. My father waited and waited. I guess it might have taken me a month to build that puzzle upside down, but I did. And my father glued cardboard to the back of the. He cut a piece of cardboard out that was the size of the puzzle, exact size of the puzzle, and then he glued that cardboard to the back of the puzzle. The next day, I think he waited 2 days before he turned it over, so the whole family and everybody could see the picture. I didn't even know what the picture was. I had forgot what the picture was all about. But you see, when it turned over, it was a picture of the White House with all the presidents. Now, I've been putting the puzzle together for years about God. I didn't realize it. My life has been an extraordinary life, just like yours, Elon, just like Einstein's, just like these other people. President Zai, you didn't know you was being used to build 5G. The one that was the inspiration, but the inspiration of God was your inspiration to get the advanced technology to buy the rare earth from America in every country to take over. You see, the strategy was always God. DC, He lives in you. Nobody can deny God. You was created when your parents, you understand this, Elon, when your parents were chosen by God, they had no idea. They met each other. They could have been from different countries, or they could have been from different neighborhoods, or they could have been brought up together and raised together. But God knew the date that they'll be married and have you. Now, because we all have DNA, Elon, I'm just saying, you got DNA. Who's in that DNA? All the deceased, all your ancestors, everybody. You live in your children, and your children live in you. I don't even know if you have children, but the point of the matter is, you know who's in the DNA. And who's in everybody's DNA. When your parents were chosen, the DNA of both your mother and father are blueprints. Blueprints. You understand what blueprints are? So He had to create you the day that He decided to put your parents together. That makes sense? Of course it does, Elon. It makes sense. And since he had to manipulate your parents' life together to meet and have you, but you was already born, because the day that he created you, when He chose your parents, he created you and then put you in everybody's DNA, living in your DNA. So you was already created. Now, if you want to get down to what we call religion, is not religion. You was alive in your DNA because God give you life in your DNA. It's your blood. DNA runs in your blood. You was alive. You was unborn. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is your parents' lives were manipulated to meet one time. They could have been, even if you was an only child, you was born. I'm telling you that you was transferred into from your parents when they had you. God was there to open your mother's embryo and let you come in. He didn't create you then. You was already created. But He opened the embryo, and He kept everybody else out. He said, come on, I've been waiting for you a long time. I've been waiting a long time for both parents. He was there, and He gave you life at the same time. But the God in you is the same age as you. Sure, you learned everything by God. Not everything, but you learn everything you know by God. Because God's your teacher. Just like right now, I'm learning about you, Elon. I just learned about um, Tesla uh, Pi phone. Tesla Pi phone. My God, I didn't know this before. God's not revealing everything at once to me. Even though I've been to Africa, I've been to Egypt, I've been to Jordan, I've been to Palestine, and I've been to Israel. I've been to the biggest church in the United States. And God's not the one that you just kind of put off. When He tells you to go, you go. When God tells you to do something, you do it. He only gives you one chance. You got to go when He says. He's not very patient. That's why He says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." You got to do what He says, or you be destroyed. Yeah, God can destroy you, Elon. You might have already come to the end of it. You might have already given the world enough that your end is near. Why? Because He used you, Elon, just like He used me. It's either you got a choice to listen or don't listen. Simple thing is you're not losing anything by accepting God is inside you, because the fact of the matter is that you're going to become the 3e to the 39th power in dollars. I mean, in one means that you're never going to be without money. You're going to be able to create anything you want, but you have to be. But you also, if you think you're on your own and you're the smartest man, whew, guess what? You got another thing coming. Your usefulness will be over, just like Einstein's usefulness got over. Besides that, E doesn't equal MC squared either. You know that. God has changed the speed of light. It's not a constant. He's changed the speed of light many times. E equals MC squared means the mass over the speed of light. But the speed of light is not a constant either. So the energy of the world has changed many times. He's stopped the worlds before. He's changed the orbits of the world. He's put the moon in front of the sun to create ice ages. He slowed things down. He speeded things up. He even stopped the world at many times. This is what I'm saying. And He speeded up the world. One of the reasons why this world was created is because God got it. It was a oops. Yeah. The world was made of hydrogen. Hydrogen's in a safe condition as long as it's kept frozen, way underneath freezing. Okay. Hydrogen is more flammable point. Is the most flammable substance in the world. It's the lightest substance known. Well, I don't know that because I'm not the smartest guy, but you know that. And the fact of the matter is, if it's kept cool, but if God gets working too busy, guess what? Boom. Originally the earth was, everything in the universe was created from an accident because it was one world. He was creating one world. Boom. It turned into the stars, the galaxies, the planets. That's all part of the first earth. The first earth was the sun. Then where the first earth have as well. What is oxygen? It's a very cold gas, water. It's nice. CO2. H2O, H2O, hydrogen, and oxygen. So He actually just blew oxygen into hydrogen and created water. Okay? That's how water came about. He just breathed on it. God's breath is oxygen. 2 parts of God, 2 parts of oxygen into hydrogen created the water that we live on. At first, the earth was pure oxygen. That's how come everything grew so big. Everything was vegetation. I mean, it was complete oxygen. What is the elements in the earth created by? Volcanic activity, because carbon feeds oxygen, makes oxygen. You know what I'm saying? It feeds on it. The trees, the vegetation feed on carbon dioxide, life, plants, and the byproduct is oxygen that we live on. The fish live on 88% oxygen. We live on 21% oxygen. Fish don't suffocate by the lack of oxygen. The same reason we suffocate, but we suffocate on less than 21%. Fish die on less than 88%. All this stuff has got to make sense to you. God accidentally blew this world up, but it turned into a good thing because that's the way God does it. But it was a oops because God got working too fast. He got too excited, and boom. Now, you see, the point of the matter is, Elon, you're being asked to do something that has to make sense to you, because up until now, nothing made sense. But the phone that you just created, I already announced that the bankers will have to get a phone to everybody of their choice. Now it's not a choice. Now it's your phone. It's not a choice. The banks aren't going to have your choice. You're going to produce 9 billion phones, basically for free. You know, it'd be very cheap for you to do this. Sure, you want $250, but I'm going to be able to get them into the poorest countries in the world right away, because you're going to produce them. And guess what they have? The best encryption in the world, can't be hacked. You're going to have the best internet access and a new internet access. It won't be the same corrupt internet. Elon, you got SpaceX, you got the satellites, so you're going to create a whole brand new internet. One with facts, one with intelligence, not A&I intelligence. We don't want to do that no more. Except for what you have to, the things that God has to benefit from. Everything has to be kept within its, they can't be a self-thinker, in other words. It can, to a point, you have to be able to control it, unplug it. You have to know who's boss. You can't let A&I start become its own God. Nothing smarter than the human brain. Nothing. It might be faster, but it's not smarter. I hate maybe you can answer this, but how many, I would say, megabytes is a human brain capable of? Is it's beyond 8, 16, 32, 64 megabytes per second? It might never reach those speeds. A human being will never reach not even 8G per second. But the point of it is, how many megabytes are we capable of? Can ANI and to the top ANI in this world? How many megabytes is it capable of? And how many megabytes are we capable of storing? We cannot let ANI compete with human beings. That's what I'm pointing at. We can't let it get to where it's creating its own intelligence. It doesn't have to eat. It doesn't have to sleep. It doesn't have any cares. Even love, compassion, even the fact of thinking is God's. God has to permit that. But when AI is given a memory, now it's not any part of God. It's an invention of man. An invention of man. You can't allow that. To be useful to man, yes, because God wants us to have assembly lines, wants us to free us up. He wants us to be free. That was made for a purpose, just like uranium is for a purpose. The discovery of plutonium was for a purpose. Plutonium is going to end up running the engines. Pure plutonium is going to end up running the engines of your spacecraft. Why? All we're waiting on is development of the metal. The metal. Why do you think you can go into space, Elon? Because there's metals out there way beyond titanium and the richness of these special things that are resistant, like asbestos, to heat. Even asbestos is it may be hazardous to health, but it's not. It doesn't catch on fire. It can't burn up. So when you build anything out of asbestos in a solid form, you can use it over and over and over and over. Land it. Why are you having to develop a metal when you have the asbestos already? The whole, where it's not affected by heat. We already have that. I don't know this for a fact because I'm not as smart as you, but this is what God's telling me because God talks to me. God talks to me all the time. I can't even sleep most of the time. I have to ask God to let me go to sleep. It's like a sermon to my mind now. It's not like writing a book and talking to God through words that I put on paper. And by listening to God, which I spent as much as 2 weeks only writing when I wrote my books. That's how God does. I didn't even. I lost track of time. I didn't even know I was people. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I wrote up to 2 weeks in a row when I was writing my books. That's the way God talks to me. Now He talks to me the same way. And I just got through coming from Cairo, and I was preaching. And I was 3 weeks fasting. Was I fasting? No, I wasn't fasting. I couldn't eat because I wasn't conscious of life. The guys woke me up. I wasn't even sleeping. I was. If I was asleep, it didn't matter. I went forward. Every week I went by, either sleeping or listening to God. I wasn't hungry because I was pretty much sick. You know why? Because God was giving me the mission to go to Palestine to end the war. And I ended up in Israel's hands, for God's sake, at the hospital, and the U.S. Embassy got me home. I'll explain all this later. But first, the most important part is to get you to understand you're being called to get all your assets out of there and invest it all into North Korea. Donald Trump, you're asked to give